Recently, I did a video on Microsoft's massive AI mistakes. In that video, I talked about how the operating system has been negatively affected by the push for AI, both in terms of data privacy, but also stability. Since that video, I've had a number of conversations with people about alternatives to Windows. As developers, options are great. If you're locked into only one choice, you quickly find that that one size does not, in fact, fit all. So let's change that. In this series, we'll be developing C# applications on Linux. But to get to that point, we're going to start from the beginning by first installing Linux on a thumb drive so we can test it without losing access to Windows. Then we'll permanently install Windows on a machine, set it up to work with C#, and start building applications. Now, along the way, we'll have a few side quest videos where we'll do Linux-specific tasks that will help you configure and set up the operating system. Developing on Linux will be different than Windows, but it will give you options so you can make a better informed decision for your own situation. And doing so will also deepen your .NET skills along the way, and that will make you a more versatile developer. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about our options, and then we're going to start into the series with the next video where we actually start by installing it on a thumb drive. So the first option you have with Linux can be overwhelming. You see, when people who have not been in the Linux community talk about Linux, they talk about it like Windows or Mac, where it's one operating system. And even Windows, we've got, well, is it Windows 10 or Windows 11? But now it's just 11 because 10 is deprecated. With Linux, that's not the case. There are flavors upon flavors upon flavors of different Linux. Linux is an overarching idea that a number of different operating systems are built upon. So which one are we going to choose? Well, we're going to choose Mint for our Linux flavor. It's a great operating system. It's been proven. It works really well. It does help with the transition from Windows to Linux because we have to remember that things will be different in Linux than they are in Windows. We can't expect to leave Windows behind, but then still have all our same things the same way. And yet you'll feel very comfortable, I think, in most areas. So we're going to start with Mint. You can choose a different operating system. You can choose Pop! OS. You can choose to go a totally different route in order to, find what works best for you. But for this video series, we're going to stick in Mint. Now, when it comes to working with .NET, we can't use Visual Studio. Visual Studio is a Windows-only IDE. It's the only one it works on is Windows. So what do we do for editing our C# applications? We have a couple of options. They're the most common. You can do multiple different things, but the most common ones are VS Code with a C# dev kit and also JetBrains Writer. You can choose either. I'll probably go over both in this series. I'll probably lean towards the VS Code more, but we can do either with this and still get the same results or similar results. It is down to preference and which tool works better at a given moment. And, VS Code with a C# dev kit has struggled somewhat in the past, and it's gotten better. And there's still some rough edges, but it seems to work pretty well. And yes, you do have to have a license for it. This license is the same as Visual Studio, where for most people, most individual developers, it's free. Now you can also use JetBrains Writer, and that can be free as well now. So again, we'll show off both options. Now, when it comes to the machine you use, like I said, we're going to first start off with just a USB key, because that way you can try it on your own machine without having to worry about losing Windows or losing access to the things you need. We'll just run it off that USB key and see how it works and test things out and try things and see if this is right for you. So we'll start there. But when it comes to machine specs, Linux is very forgiving. In fact, I do have a demo. I've decided, I haven't done it yet, but I wanted at some point do a demo for you of a Raspberry Pi keyboard that I have. It's a keyboard with the whole operating system, the whole system built right into all the hardware and everything built into the keyboard. It operates, I believe it's a 400 megahertz operating system with dual core. So it's very low specs. And yet I've installed VS Code with C# Dev Kit and built a Blazor app and ran it on that keyboard. So you can do it. Now it's sluggish, it's slow because it doesn't have a whole lot of processing power, but you can do it. So the specs of your machine don't have to be as strong as they would with Windows. When I was doing some testing for this, I installed it on an old laptop I have. And this laptop has been in my closet, just sitting there. Time has passed it by. In fact, I opened it up and I believe it was Windows 10, and it was just sluggish to the point where I would click and things would time out before they actually happened. And I was having a hard time even getting into Windows. I want to see what's on Windows and set it up. So when I install Linux on it, it's much, much faster. And it's a usable Linux, the developer machine, even though it was totally unusable as a Windows machine. So you can reclaim older hardware or take older hardware and use it as a Linux machine. Now, yes, good specs are great, and the better the specs are, the better experience you may have. However, I just want to point out you don't have to have a top-of-the-line machine in order to do C# development on Linux. All right. Last thing I want to talk about in this idea of our options here is types of projects we can build in Linux. This is one that sometimes people miss, and that is not every .NET project is something we can develop and run on Linux. WinForms, WPF, which stands for Windows Presentation Foundation, both of those, the clue is in the name, as well as UWP, where it says Windows in the name, because those project types are tied directly to the underlying operating system. They rely on DLLs that are baked into Windows, which means they do not run on Mac or Linux. Even with MAUI, you might think, well, that's cross-platform development, right? Yes, but it's cross-platform development on Windows and Mac, iOS and Android. It does not work on Linux. It does not work on the web. So that is also something where we're not going to be doing MAUI development because we're not going to be running on Mac or Windows. We're going to be running on Linux primarily. So what can we do? You might think, well, we're totally limited, right? Well, not really. Console apps, which are the foundation for any learning thing that you do in C#, you should start with console apps. They work just fine on Linux. Also, service apps, we can do daemons on Linux using C#. We can also do anything practically. I don't think there's any limitations on the web. The only limitation would be in .NET Framework. You can't do any .NET Framework projects, but WCF didn't come over, but that also was Windows-based. So we really have a wide open web experience on Mac or on Linux. But also, we can do cross-platform development using a tool like Uno. So we'll probably dabble in that as well. We create the project primarily on Linux, but then deploy it to Mac and to Windows as well to see how that works. So we have a lot of project options, but there are some limitations compared to Windows. Now, real quick, I want to talk about what we're not going to be doing. One of the things we're not going to be doing is hiding from all things Microsoft. Now, there is this idea that, we're, the anti-Microsoft. Definitely not. Definitely not anti-Microsoft. This is just adding a new option into our toolkit. And I do think that options are really good. And so knowing how to develop on Mac, knowing how to develop on Linux gives you options when it comes to working with a new desktop system, new company, where maybe the company is all Macs or all Linux, and you go, cool, I can do that. As opposed to going, wow, it's a totally different foreign environment that I don't know how to deal with. So having options is good. But Microsoft kind of invades or touches a lot of our life. GitHub is Microsoft. Azure is Microsoft. My favorite browser right now, which that causes some controversy, but is Microsoft Edge, which is just a Chromium wrapper. VS Code, Microsoft. .NET is from Microsoft. So yes, we're really dealing with some Microsoft products. And yes, we might even deal with Copilot, which If you've watched my other content, you probably know that I have some problems with Copilot or with AI in general. And if you look at what the actual problems are, often the biggest problem is being told you have to do this. This is forced upon you. This is going to be installed whether you like it or not. And that I'm not okay with. However, AI can be valuable. And so we may end up using it or try it out or see how it works on our timetable when we decide to, making it our decision and our choice rather than being forced upon us. So we will do some things Microsoft. By the way, I'll have a side quest video on installing Edge, and we can have a whole discussion over why Edge versus Brave versus Firefox versus whatever else you want to talk about, okay? So we're not going to hide from all things Microsoft. Also, we are not going to pretend this is your only choice. Sometimes people get this idea locked in their minds that when you have a choice, it must be the right solution for everything. And that's not true. Linux is not the right solution for every user. And being on Windows is the right solution for a lot of users. So it's not like there's one size fits all. We're not going to try and force that or try to say this is the right solution for everybody. Now, I do think that understanding how Linux works makes it easier for more people to use it. And I think more people would benefit from using Linux as their primary operating system. But we're just not going to say that it's your only choice or this is the best thing for everybody. This is going to be the right choice for you if you decide it's the right choice for you. It depends. So the last thing is we're not going to expect everything to work the same way as Windows. This is another one of those things that comes up often where people decide, I'm going to leave Windows. I'm going to leave Windows behind because, I don't like this. And they go to Mac or to Linux and say, why doesn't this work like Windows? Well, you just left Windows. You are on a different option, and that different option will work differently. And yes, sometimes you may have preferences that say, I prefer the way Windows does it. For example, on Mac, I really prefer how Windows does Windows, which is, that's kind of the thing they do. So things like maximizing and half screen and quarter screen, all the rest, I install a tool to make that better on Mac because I like how Windows does it. Well, on Linux, there are things that I like better how Windows does. And one of the ones getting a kind of a pain point at first, especially since we're developers and we want to install developer tools, is there's a bit more command line work than you might expect. In Windows, we expect just to go to a website and just say install, and it downloads a file, you just run it and it just installs, which can be good, but it can also be horrible because it can install things we don't want. It can accidentally install spyware and malware and all the rest that maybe we didn't expect it to do. With Linux, we're going to do a bit more of things like saying, hey, I trust this specific website to give me updates for this line of products. And that's a bit different than we expect from Windows. So there'll be some differences. And I'm going to walk you through that and show you how to do those things. But just note, it will be different than Windows, and there are valuable reasons why it's different, but also it's just a different option. And knowing the options allows you to make a better, more informed choice. So this series, which is going to be a number of videos, is going to be on getting up to speed on Linux and working with C# and .NET on Linux and seeing how those different pain points appear and how to get past them and how to really make a great development experience on a different operating system than maybe you're used to. So I encourage you to stick along for the ride. This is a playlist on my YouTube channel, so go check that playlist out and subscribe to it, or just subscribe to the whole channel. You'll be notified when new ones come out. But that way you can keep on top of this and really expand your ability to be a more well-rounded developer and have more options available to you. All right, thanks for watching. And as always, I am Tim Corey.